Short book means short review, right? Shadows in Flight by Orson Scott Card is the 5th book in the Ender Shadow series. I've reviewed all the books in the Ender Shadow series, and I'm working on the Ender Quintet as I read all of these this year in preparation to read The Last Shadow, which is the latest installment in this series by Orson Scott Card. So this will be a spoiler-free review for the contents of this book. However, there's one spoiler for the previous book in the series that I can't talk about this without letting you know that. So if you haven't read Shadow of the Giant, maybe click away and come back so you won't be spoiled for that final plot point that is the genesis of this book. But this will be spoiler-free. As I mentioned, this is a really quick read. It's about 300 pages, but it's a really big font. I read this in less than 3 hours. And to be honest, it felt more like a novella than a short novel. It's a pretty small tale with really just 4 characters and a very small story that just does 1 or 2 different things from a plot standpoint. So pretty quick read. So there's no need for a spoiler section or anything like that in this review. But the story starts with Bean and 3 of his children, and they're in space. And the reason they're in space is that the 4 of them share a genetic disorder that will cause them to all die young. So because of the relativistic effects of space travel, they're traveling at a different rate of time than what is happening on Earth. For them, a day is weeks or months on Earth. And Card is a little fuzzy as to what the exact ratio is, but essentially what they're hoping is that the people on Earth, the scientists, can solve this genetic disorder so that they can go back and live long lives on Earth. So it's a small tale because we just have these 4 characters. We have Bean and his 2 sons and his daughter. They're introduced to you, the 2 sons and the daughter, very reminiscent of the Wigginses from Ender's Game. We get the kind of sadistic older brother, we get the younger brother who's the thoughtful one, and then we get the sister in the middle who's kind of caught in the middle between these 2 very different siblings. Well, thankfully, Card changes that up a little bit. He plays with your expectations by introducing them that way, and then he subverts those expectations. So that was interesting. But as a whole, I didn't find the 3 of them very compelling. And I think that was one of the reasons that I didn't connect with this book very well, because I didn't really like 3 of the 4 characters. I will say one of the 3 siblings does have a satisfying character arc, but as a whole, I was kind of unimpressed with them as characters. I didn't find them compelling. I wanted more of Bean. You know, this is his series. It's called the Ender Shadow series. Bean is Ender's Shadow. We've had 4 books where he's been the main protagonist, and now he had to take a back seat for his unimpressive children, for lack of a better term. So that was disappointing. The plot doesn't really do much. Again, this feels like a novella. They're in space, they discover another spaceship, they explore the spaceship, and there are some ramifications for it. Some of the ramifications are interesting. There's 1 or 2 interesting things from a theme level that I can't talk about without spoilers that made me think a bit, and it made me question some of my things I thought about based on the other books in the series. But for the most part, the story didn't really go anywhere. And at the very end, I know Card was trying to pull on our heartstrings, and it just really fell flat for me. A lot of times I finish a book and I'm, even if I didn't enjoy it, I might feel satisfied, but I got to the end of this one and just felt, okay, I guess I'm done with that one. So overall, kind of an unimpressive book in the grand scheme of these books. Again, Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow are both S-tier level science fiction as far as I'm concerned, but this is a huge, huge shadow of those 2 books. When I get to December, after I've reread and read all of the books in this series, I'm going to do a video on viewing advice, giving my order that I think you should read them, because publication order is not always king. It usually is, but sometimes it isn't. And then my final reading advice, where I will give you which books I think you should read and if you should skip some. If I had to make the decision right now, I'd say that Shadows in Flight is an entirely skippable tale. I think it more belonged to maybe a collection of short fiction that is not part of the overall trajectory of these series, because it's very slight and didn't really do a whole lot for me. Overall, Shadows in Flight, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. So up next for me, next month, I will be reviewing Speaker for the Dead, which is, in publication order, the second book that Orson Scott Card wrote. I have hopes that it has more of the thematic depth, which I've loved about the earlier portion of the Shadow series rather than these later installments. So if you are following these reviews, you can look for that review from me at the end of September. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I would love to interact with you more, so find me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'm there quite a bit. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.